Hello and welcome. I'm Stevo. Today I want to talk a bit about coding bootcamps and my experience with them. So, in my last couple of videos, I mentioned the fact that I attended a coding bootcamp here in Scotland, and ultimately it worked out pretty well for me. I was given a very comprehensive and up-to-date curriculum to follow. The instructors were very helpful and knowledgeable as well. I managed to get a career at the end of the day, in the end, which is sort of the goal for most people, I would assume. And I networked with loads of other people sort of doing the same thing, people like myself, and all for a pretty reasonable fee considering that it's basically paid off at this point. It is paid for itself in the last couple of years, sort of since I've attended the course. So let's take a look at the bootcamp that I attended, what it offers, and whether I got that or not, basically. I'll probably go a bit more into detail about my personal experience with it. Hopefully that might tell you a bit more than the marketing does. So, without further ado, let's have a look.
So this is CodeClan. This is the bootcamp that I attended. They are based in Scotland, as I mentioned previously, and more specifically, they have two physical campuses here in Scotland. They've got one in Edinburgh and Glasgow. I attended remotely, although it was technically the Edinburgh campus, um, but everything was remote at the time. Obviously, during 2020, it was the pandemic, of course, so everyone was remote. But I think they still do remote learning as well. So you're not physically tied to any particular campus. I think it makes mention of that actually on the homepage here. So we move down a little bit. You've got the usual the standout sort of statistics and things. Job placement rate, course completion rate, things like that. Um, so this bit here, it mentions that you can learn remotely. Um, and also, if you want, you can also go to one of the physical campuses. So it gives you the option now of doing either or. When I attended, it was only remote learning. Um, and then before that, I believe it was just in person. So now they offer both, which I think is pretty good. Um, so it might work out even if you aren't anywhere near Scotland. If it works out well enough in terms of time zone and things like that, and you can sort of pass the entry exam into the course and things, I don't see why you couldn't attend this course from say somewhere in Europe or something like that, for example. Somewhere with a similar time zone, but not within sort of commute distance. um, but yeah, you'd have to speak to them and see. I think it's good, regardless, that they offer both now. Um, yeah, the rest of the homepage is just the usual stuff. It's call to actions and testimonials and the usual stuff you can expect from a homepage. Um, but yeah, so courses. They've got quite a few courses. I did the professional software development course. That's their sort of main course. That's their bread and butter. That's what they're known for and sort of what they started doing from the beginning. But they've added a ton since. Even I did it. They've got tons more now. They've got lots of these sort of short-term courses that last just like a few days. Things like UX and just sort of beginners courses for coding and JavaScript and things, as you can see here. Um, those will just last a few days generally. So it might be a good way just to sort of dip your toes in the water and see how it is, or maybe you're just trying to upskill a little bit in a particular thing. They actually advertise, not necessarily going as a student yourself, but they actually advertise to companies to get their employees to come and do the courses as well. And that kind of short term course might be sort of more geared towards them. Um, so that's something they market towards as well. But you also see on the website, it's not just marketing towards getting people on the courses and things. They actually try and get employers to come and hire the grads. Basically, half the website is sort of advertising that side of it as well, and the kind of work that the grads are doing, the experience they're coming out with, and um, just showing companies that these people are very determined to do this and learn this stuff very quickly. And so will probably prove to be valuable assets at a company as a newbie, as a junior. But yeah, Courses other than that, the main courses that they have, so obviously I did the professional software development one. There's a data course as well. There's a professional data analysis course. That's the other sort of big course that they do for the data stuff if you prefer that route. But yeah, we'll just quickly jump into what they've got for the course here. Yeah, so basically it goes through sort of what the course has, you know, what it's going to give you, what it's offering. And I would say it's pretty similar to what I did really. Um, Pre-coursework. So yeah, a couple of weeks before you begin the course, basically what will happen is you'll be given sort of a sort of list of things to go through, exercises, sort of homework in a sense, you know, like coursework to do before you start the course. Just sort of as it says there, HTML, CSS. Um, because it's such a fast-paced thing, they don't want to spend the first week or so learning something like HTML and CSS when you only have like 14 weeks, really. There's a ton of other more complicated things you need to sort of cover in that time. So to give you a sort of a head start, they recommend heavily that you give yourself a bit of an introduction into HTML and CSS first in your own time before the course starts. And they give you materials to do that, obviously, but you can do that any way you want. But they give you sort of coursework to complete and things. Um, Terminal commands as well. Good to get a head start on them. You do go over them a little bit at the start. I did personally. We sort of took a few days to sort of go over the basic terminal commands, sort of bash commands and things with us, just to show us how that works. You know, a bunch of people starting the course never even touched command line before, so it was definitely worth doing that. But yeah, go over that basically as well as HTML and CSS is what they're saying, because then that sort of gives you a little bit of a head start. Um, but it says that the next part, the sort of main module that they first go into in the first few weeks is Python. Um, I mentioned in a previous video of mine that my first language was actually Python, but it wasn't because of CodeClan. I didn't actually learn Python during my course at CodeClan, although they did give us a little sort of couple of day, you know, here's Python thing, sort of one of those 3-day short-term courses afterwards as a sort of complimentary thing. The reason I didn't get this part is because I got Ruby instead. I was the last cohort to get Ruby before they changed to Python. So what they did instead was, as I said, they gave us this 3-day course at the end, that's sort of quickly covering this stuff. Um, that they obviously these guys joining now are going to get the first few weeks doing it, but we had already done Ruby and other things like JavaScript and React and Vue and stuff like that. Um, so we already generally got how it worked. It was more just sort of showing us the differences in the syntax and things like that. Yeah, um, Python's very popular. It's very useful. Doesn't just necessarily work for web development. It can be used for a lot of different stuff. So Python's a very viable language to learn. First of all, so yeah, I'm glad they switched that to Python. That's good. Um, but you do that for the first few weeks. You will do a solo project at the end, which is what we did, but with Ruby instead. And you just take everything that you've learned basically, and you create within a week a sort of web app, usually like a CRUD app, create, read, update, delete. If you don't know what that means, basically just sort of showcasing what you've learned and sort of your ability to plan out a project and sort of put all that stuff into one sort of cohesive idea that you've either thought of, or there's a couple of different sort of briefs that they give you you can sort of take as well, but you kind of have to come up with your own ideas and things and then sort of create an app with it. It's quite intense to build an app in a week, especially when you don't know what you're doing really. um, and so the instructors are very helpful. You're going to ask them questions, and they're always there to give you answers, in my experience. But yeah, they're very helpful. So they would help you out with that. And even if you are really struggling, you'll probably pull through. It again, a week seems like a short amount of time for to build a whole web app when you've only been coding for like a month. But you get a ton of help, and they don't spoon feed you. They try and make a point of not spoon feeding you the answers, but they will as to the best of their ability, will try and push you towards where you need to be. and they do it very well. So it's good. But yeah, it's a very satisfying milestone to get that first project over and done with, and it's a good point. You generally start feeling quite tired by this point as well. After your first project, you'll start to feel the fatigue kick in. But then you move on to the next step up. So you move on to JavaScript. And again, this so far from this point onwards, from what I can tell, this is exactly the same as what I got. So JavaScript, you start with kind of going over the same fundamental basics that you went over with Python, just sort of doing it in the JavaScript way and sort of explaining the differences and things like that. So then moving on, you've got your group project. This is where you start sort of collaborating and things with your peers and sort of come together, come up with an idea for a project that you all like and want to do. That can be a bit of a challenge in itself, but that obviously is part of the learning process. Learn how to work in a team, come to compromises and things like that. Um, that sort of pseudo agile environment is a good thing to experience this early on. And then you take a little break after that as you finish with JavaScript pretty much, and you go into Careers Week, which is more of a focus on how you network, how you sort of go about um, sort of pitching and selling yourself to companies and things, sort of selling your skills. Um, so that's CV writing, that's your LinkedIn profile, sort of just making you um, a worthy candidate, on paper, but also sort of interview questions and interview sort of skills really to help you sort of ace that part. A lot of people take that as the break, like, oh, okay, we're getting a breather here, but it is really not. This is probably the most important week, I would say. And the last part, obviously, the last major sort of module is Java, as I mentioned, and then you go more into how statically typed languages work. You go a bit more into depth about object oriented programming because Java, and you learn Spring Boot for a sort of a web framework for Java. Uh, and yeah, it's kind of a lot of the same thing, but just Java and principles that are specific to Java, basically. I personally found this part the hardest for me at the time. I kind of work with Java now occasionally in my job now. It's still a widely used language. We use it as part of our content management system. So I wouldn't write it off as, oh, Java's old. I'm probably not going to use Java. Pay attention to Java, especially because it's quite difficult. At least for me, I think a lot of people have different opinions on this part because some people prefer Java to JavaScript, and some people prefer the JavaScript part to Java. Um, it just depends. I was more JavaScript. I just sort of gravitate to front end, I think, and things like that as well. But um, yeah, it's valuable to know anyway. So you do all that, and then you do your final project. This can be basically using anything that you've learned throughout the course. You can do it solo, you can do it in a group, and it's usually difficult. They don't give you briefs or anything like that. It's just sort of go and do whatever kind of thing. Um, and it can be quite daunting to sort of just go and create something. Sort of trying to remember all the things you've learned and things like that. And it can be stressful, especially if you try and use something that you haven't been taught because you are allowed to do that. Um, I personally used a library from mine which we hadn't been shown because I was trying to create a synthesizer with React because we learned React sort of towards the end as well. Um, we had a quick little jump back into JavaScript and learn a bit of React. But we actually learned Vue during the JavaScript module. So I don't know if they still teach both, but um, they're kind of similar anyway. So in a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so I tried to use a library. I did use a library to create a synthesizer. Um, and they couldn't really help me with that. I was collaborating with another person on the course I'm still in touch with, we really sort of banged our heads against the wall with that one. It's quite a stressful one because it basically didn't work until like 2 days before before the showcase. You do a sort of show and tell of these projects at the end as well, and you sort of pitch it and talk it through and with the other you know instructors and other people at CodeClan as well. You sort of showcase it to like everyone really that's sort of available, people from other cohorts, other instructors. A lot of times the like management and things will come and watch it. Um, so that can be quite stressful in itself for a lot of people, just sort of presenting like a project that you've only spent a week on. Um, and it's usually riddled with bugs and stuff. But it's a good laugh as well. Um, and it sort of prepares you for that sort of been able to present an idea to people as well and be able to talk sort of technical concepts in a non-technical way and things like that. Hi there, future Stevo here, coming to you for the power of editing. Just very quickly, want to mention that the course does go over a couple of things not mentioned here in this sort of high-level overview. Things like HTTP, that's very important. Sort of project management things like Kanban boards, how tickets work, how epics work, that kind of stuff. More sort of agile principles and things like that. To sort of prepare you for how that works, especially going into projects and things, so you can plan them effectively. And also some API stuff. So like API testing, working with APIs, using things like Postman, Omnia, that kind of stuff. So just thought I'd throw that in because it is important that you know that they also teach that stuff. But yeah, that's it. Once you've done your third project, you're basically done after that. That's graduation. By the time you hit week 16. After that, as it says here, you get career support for 6 months. So what happens basically is they don't try and go like they don't try and get you a job. Basically, what they do is they will help you um, with like inviting you to networking events, like with employers and things, project showcases, inviting you to those and showing sort of the not only other cohorts starting, but also like other employers and things who are coming to see what the students have done. Um, you get invited to those. I personally did one or two. Um, Ultimately, nothing came from it for me, but you might get something out of it. I've heard a few people did, so um, maybe maybe worth doing. Job alerts and things as well. They will tell you when they get specific uh, sort of jobs that come in, like from companies and things. They'll go to CodeClan rather than putting the ad out externally. They'll go directly to CodeClan and ask, you know, do you have anyone who would be suitable for this? We'll interview them first, and then we'll hire externally. They don't really give you any sort of reference or anything. CodeClan, they'll just send your CV on your behalf, basically, um, in any sort of cover letter you want to send them. So yeah, it is support. I wouldn't say it's like they're not trying to spoon feed you a job or anything. It's not like a silver spoon. It's something in between, basically. People that don't get jobs out of this, I find a lot of them complain about this part, like they didn't get enough support and things like that. Um, I can't really say because I don't, I'm not there to see, but like you kind of get out of these courses what you put in, right? And it's the same afterwards. It's the same with actually looking for a job. You need to put the effort in. Although you're investing like money and your time into this, there's a lot of money as well. You expect a lot, but you also need to do a lot yourself. It's not just they can't just do everything for you. That's not really how it works. What you're paying for at the end of the day is to have this course sort of designed and laid out for you. So you don't even have to think about what you need to learn. They'll just lay it out on the ground for you. There it is. Go do it, and we'll help out if you need it. You've got sort of instructors on hand to help you out whenever you need to get support, and you get advice and you get a little bit of help at the end for getting jobs and things. You can network with the other people who you've learned with, um, network with employers. You're paying for all that. You're paying for to be part of a community basically, who are all trying to do the same thing, and that's one of the most valuable things you can get as someone who doesn't have a traditional background in, say, computer science or any previous experience in tech, really. It's just a valuable advantage to have. But yeah, that's it basically. Anything else on this page worth mentioning? Let's see. Funding. This is something that's probably worth mentioning. So this has gone up a little bit since I attended. This has gone up almost £1,000 since I attended this course, which is steep, you know. Inflation, cost of living crisis, and all that. But yeah, it's still in comparison, as it says down here, like in comparison to other boot camps, it's cheaper. In the UK, you know, even like going down to England and stuff, like there's similar courses like this, I believe, um, that are much more expensive, and you don't necessarily get a lot of the stuff that CodeClan here gives you. So, CodeClan is accredited by the SQA, which is the sort of governing body for like qualifications here in Scotland. It's sort of the main one. There's a couple in the UK, but that's the main one for Scotland. And they are actually backing this course. Basically, they're saying that this is legit. This is verified by us. Like, you know, this is the real deal. They wouldn't back a scam. Basically, campus in Scotland, that might not necessarily be a benefit, but I don't think it's saying that necessarily. I think it's just comparing with other boot camps. And yeah, instructor support. Yeah, I mean that's a given. There's instructors you'd expect support, and career support. Yeah, like obviously you don't necessarily get career support from other boot camps. They're guaranteeing 6 months, so which I can testify to. They do give you support for 6 months. I didn't need support for 6 months, but from what I've seen, you know, they will support you for that long. At least 6 months. I think circumstances can vary a little bit as well. They're not strict on it, from what I remember. So yeah, and it sort of does the maths for you. You know, is it worth it? The average graduate salary here is £25,000. That's maybe gone up a bit recently, just given inflation and things. Market rate is probably a little bit higher than that now. But you know, where you could end up as someone without a degree earning £45,000 in Scotland, that's quite a decent salary here. You know, people from the US are probably looking at that and thinking that's nothing. What, like just sort of putting a dollar sign in front of that instead of pounds, that doesn't look like much. But that's like cost of living here is a bit different. So yeah, that's a decent salary here. They're not guaranteeing that. It's just sort of what you can potentially earn. So that is it basically. There's a little bit sort of explaining, you know, here's the upcoming dates for the courses for the different campuses and things. It mentions remote training as well. There's two starting next year in the winter and summer. Other than that, you know, obviously Edinburgh and Glasgow have a bit more going on, sort of in person. It could probably be it's probably a given. Yeah. So that is it. That is the course.
So, with all that said, do I think coding boot camps are worth it? Are they worth the substantial investment of time and money? For me, it absolutely was. However, whether it's right for you or not, that depends entirely on your situation and is not for me to decide. So hopefully, this little insight into my experience has been helpful in helping you make that decision easier. But ultimately, as I said, it depends on your situation. It depends on the bootcamp as well. They're all different, as we sort of discussed a little bit. It just depends on what they're offering, how much it costs, how long it's going to take, what people are saying about it, how the instructors are. There's a whole load of variables. So do your research and talk to people if you can who have maybe done the course before, see where they're at now and things. And basically it's not a decision to take lightly. So definitely, do your homework and figure out if it's the right thing for you. But it was for me. And of course, if you want to attend CodeClan, then I can fully recommend it. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions for me or have any bootcamp experiences of your own that you want to share as well. But anyway, that's it for this one. Bye for now.